Tara, think of working solutions. Good thing you did work.
There we go. Is there still the president of the roofing association?
Eric is the president of Arizona Roofing Contractors Association, and that is nominated by roofers themselves.
So there's that.
So there's that.
Just saying.
I always forget,
Right?
but there's that. We're not going anywhere.
Well, duh.
Oh, anyway.
All right. Yeah. Okay, that's right there. All right. Hey, everybody. How we do? You know it's market update day, but I bring my Disney bag. That is right. Second, why do I'm not coming back. Is that what you're thinking? I can see it in your face. All right. To get started, we're gonna have the papers are gonna get passed out here in just a second. To get started though, I want to talk about the state of things. Everything was approved. We've been saying the settlement was likely to be approved, and as it is written form, people were worried that the DOJ might come in. It was never something that the DOJ really had control over to say or undo anything. They could just throw more wrenches into stuff, but it was never going to have any effect on the settlement. Settlement's been approved. Okay, so with the settlement approved, well, I think someone should settle this is Spanish. With the settlement being approved, what does that mean now for us?
Divorce.
All right, so some of the things, what does this mean? Something divorce. A new forms. I was like, wow, that escalated. I don't know, it's what I heard. New forms, divorce. It's not too far off. Yes. Okay, so new forms. We'll make sure we get that correct. New forms. Buyer broker.
Thank you.
Required. What else? Charles.
I heard a rumor that AAR is working on an EA style buyer broker,
Okay.
which is concerning to me because I don't know why they would encourage procuring cost claims, but that just seems like that would cause prices to skyrocket.
They're calling it a non-exclusive.
Non-exclusive buyer broker agreement.
Yeah, that won't cause problems at all. That's not going to cause any problems.
Well, what's the need? Like, why that at all?
That would put me on a soapbox, so we'll just wait on that.
I mean, given the decision now going into effect, this is the exact opposite of what.
Yes, it is. That's why I would get on my soapbox.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
I will invite you up to the soapbox.
We are doing tap dance.
Huh?
We do the tap dance.
I could. I did one this weekend. Last weekend. I did again. And I'm gonna say I still got it because we got first place. Yes. Thank you.
Elizabeth wants to know if your
But
soapbox.
20 years since I've done it and it didn't matter. What?
Elizabeth wants to know if your soapbox can go in front of the forms committee.
Yes. Yes. Can we?
Please.
All right. What else is happening? So we're gonna see, this is all kind of like new forms, buyer broker. What else?
New agency.
Okay, we got the agency. I'm gonna include that with the EA part here.
People are asking about the lawsuit and the settlement at the rate of about 60% was the consensus, and the revenue just came at it.
Okay, there's consumer questions. How about compensation? The obvious one, right? Compensation is changing. The buyer side. Marketing.
Compensation on the seller side.
Yeah, technically this will cause that. Yes.
VA buyers.
Marketing. Changes. Oh, somebody said something.
Right before, yeah. One of those things.
Not really.
I hear that.
False one. Okay. we have these changes coming.
Hey, agent to agent.
Agent to agent referrals are changing?
Well, should
Tell
they,
me more.
should, if I send you a referral and you agree to pay me 25%, and then you don't get compensated when you represent that buyer, you still owe me 25% of what purchase price. Like the
Okay.
domino effect that
Okay.
that's there.
I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I so you have a big gun in.
Way to go, K-Dub. All right, so what are we gonna do about this?
You're gonna send all your
Practice.
referrals to me, and I will make good on them.
Know your value. Good?
Good script training.
Good script training. All right, so we have this thing.
You ready to script then?
Free practice, Tuesdays, Thursdays at 8:30 AM. Okay, because here's the reality with it. I've touched on this a time or two, and I'm not going to stop harping on it. So some of you might start getting sick of me for that reason, and that's okay. You have right now 90 days. That's it. You have 90 days of practice. Okay, clock will start. We now know for sure that this is going to go into effect third week of August. That's what it takes effect. Okay. So you have 90 days to be practicing. We talked about this at the town hall. We talked about this in my class about getting paid and ways you need to start practicing to get your compensation. What do you need to practice? What are the things that you need to be aware of here?
Fire concentration and presenting your value.
Okay, so you need to understand what that's going to look like to present your value, right? I've written all this down. Actually did slightly prepare it today. Okay, so that one is going to go over here. We have systems and processes that we have to take care of, start practicing. What those look like is your buyer consult, your listing consult, your regular lead gen. Okay, these things are going to change. The way you do them now is not going to be the way you're going to need to do them in 90 days. So, my quick show.
Thank you, Tim.
That do not wait for 90 days. Okay, change is inevitable, truly inevitable. It's coming. Your participation right now is optional, and change is always going to be in some form or fashion somewhere. Your participation in it is always optional until it's forced on you. 90 days, that's what's coming. The change will be forced on you if you haven't already begun to adjust and to adapt. And if we're thinking that, oh, it's fine, commissions have always been negotiable, it's not a big deal, I'll just need to now talk to them, or now it's going to be easier to get the buyer broker signed because I have to have it signed. You're missing the boat on it, and your boat's not going to go faster. What 3 things make your boat go faster? What makes your boat go faster? What do I mean by the boat?
Heats.
Leads. Okay, leads. Systems. Conversations, and that's where I put leads. Systems, I also put leads. And then the third one, education. I'll put leads. Those are the only things that make your boat go faster right now. And the reason we're just going to refer to doing these things around here as making the boat go faster is because it comes from the English Britain rowing team who was really bad, sucked immensely. Coach after coach couldn't get them better. They come in and they change everything, come in and change everything, like, oh, now I'm the most celebrated coach out there. This. Okay. You couldn't help the suck, but they sucked. They sucked so bad. So then finally, the coach came along and said, all right, we're not going to change anything. We're just going to try to get better every day. Get better today than you were yesterday. Get better the next day. And that's where this idea, you probably heard it out, get 1% better. 1% better every day. That's one of the areas in which that came from. What they had to start focusing on is how do we make the boat go faster? What's going to make the boat go faster? And they needed to focus their attention on something. We all have so many things we can focus our attention on. So our focusing question is what makes the boat go faster? If the making my boat go faster doesn't create conversations for me, don't do it. If it doesn't go to having systems or process, being able to develop those, don't do it. If it's education that's not applicable to helping you build a system or have conversations, don't go. Okay, that's where you need to look at it, because every waking moment right now, you need to be looking for ways to have conversations. Conversations, that's what it's all about. Conversations. So given that that's the whole thing that will make your boat go faster, have conversations, get a check. It's really weird how it happens. If you don't have conversations, then you don't get a check. Kind of how it works. Right? That is the simplest form. This here, your systems and process, makes your boat go faster. These are going to change. So whatever you have now and you use is not going to be what you use in 90 days. Okay? So as a result, we need to be looking at this, but more so looking at how all of this applies to who, Charles? Soapbox. Now, this all, they come and they put it, we in our infinite wisdom, because we are all so smart at NAR, $500 million smart. We decided we'll come up with the answer for how this is all going to get fixed. Who was it that sued us? What's that? Consumers. Consumers sued us because they didn't like the system we created. Let's just create another system and tell them fine. What's going to go wrong? No, I'm sure nothing. Okay, this is all about. We have to look at this through the lens of what does the consumer want. So you have 90 days right now to be practicing how these are going to work. Why do I keep blinking out of my mind? Can't do that, right? Conversations. Okay, is what you need to practice. And there's one more. What are these conversations that you should be practicing? What do they start to look like?
You know how I get paid?
Huh?
Do you know how I get paid?
Okay, part of this, do you know how I get paid? So I'm actually that's the third one. Compensation, you gotta practice. These are the three things we have to practice. Your conversations right now, how many of you are having conversations with buyers right now? And they're asking you stuff about this settlement, or thinking that they don't have to pay, or that it's flat fee, or something like that. Raise your hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's really alarming to me. In this room, we had less than 25% of you raise your hand right now that those conversations about that are happening. Okay, without knowing anything else that you're doing, what that tells me right now, you are not having enough conversations. You are not lead generating. If you were, you would be having those conversations, because about what percent of the time? 60. They bring it up.
So you asked about buyers. I'm having more of those conversations with potential sellers.
Good, I meant just all consumers, please. Now we're at 25%.
I listen.
Now we're at 25%. Okay? Yeah. These conversations we have are going to include two things in it. They're going to include objections and conditions. It's important that you identify which ones are which when you're having the conversation. Okay? Scripting will help you identify and move through these. My recommendation to you all right now is that after today, or even if you want to pick your phone up and do it right now, so after class, not after today, after 2 o'clock, or down on your phone, you start reaching out to your best friends. Because that's, in your mind, you're going to wait until your best friend is there because they magically in 90 days decide they're going to buy a house. And that's where you will get to safely practice your conversations. You'll get to safely practice your buyer appointment. You'll get to safely practice all of this because they're my friend, they're going to do it anyway. To one extent or another, that's what we all believe or hope. Or just like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll work. So if your plan's already to work with your best friend, call that best friend today and say, hey, can I sit down and talk to you about some things? I got some things from work I want to run by you. Could really use your help in my business. I gotta tell them. Are they like to say no? They say no, be the friend. Okay? Maybe not that harsh. But my point is, get somebody who will come in and do a buyer consult with them. But they're not going to buy, Jason. I don't care if they're not going to buy right now. I really could care less if they're not going to buy right now. I want you to practice. And in that, you're going to come up with conversations that are going to have objections, and you're going to have ones that are conditions. What are some things that would be a condition? As opposed to an objection. How about the duration of it? How long do I have to do this?
Address by address.
Huh?
Simply address by address.
Completely. It looks like address, it may do that. All right, now if you want to put sweet. All right, so the duration, how long am I going to be in this contract with you? What does it apply to? What else are conditions? Exclusive. Right? And potentially even the fee, right? The fee, depending on how it comes on up, could be a condition. It could technically be an objection.
I just mean like a retention fee up front.
It as well, it could be, right? Fee, retention fee.
Pay for my gas.
Here's the thing that happens. Most often, the conversations around why the buyer broker are conversations around just they don't understand. And if they don't understand, they're going to ask questions. And we have to be less defensive, which turns conditions into objections, and more just recognizing most of the time, because we're in it every day, when somebody asks us, it feels like another objection. Well, why should you get paid? That seems like an objection. How dare you say that to me? Well, I'll tell you why, because I deal with this every day with people like, it's just a condition. They don't understand. But how do you get paid? What is that? And then it's an opportunity for you to explain to them, to educate them. So a lot of this is going to require education, right? So you can explain it to them, which also is why it makes your boat go faster. Okay, so these conditions here. Now, when you meet with your friend and you're talking about, are you aware of this in our settlement? Force the issue. Okay? Force the conversation. If you don't force the conversation, you won't know how to handle the conversation. My example for this is, I lived in Brazil for 2 years, did a church mission in Brazil, spoke Portuguese. Was completely fluent. Most of the time they thought my Brazilian companion was American and that I was Brazilian. I look really Brazilian, right? In South Brazil, where I was at, it was a heavy German and Italian influence. So actually, blue eyes, white guy running around was not unlikely to be Alemão. That's what they all called him in Germany. So I stopped this couple one night in the street to talk to them. We're having a good conversation, and they say that they're headed to the main church downtown. It's called the Matriz. They're headed to that. That's what is the main Catholic church. The way they have it set up, they have the main Catholic church, and then they have smaller churches out in their barrios, right, where they would gather together. But they have big events downtown. So they had headed to the Matriz. Awesome. I've been in Brazil now, 16 months or something like that, a little over a year. I'd never said the word Matriz. I obviously knew what it meant, but I'd never said it. It's like, I know all this stuff, but I've never said it. I know what this is, and I can kind of explain it, but I haven't actually done it yet. So I said to them, oh, great, so you guys are headed to the Matriz. the reaction from them immediately told me, even though in my mind I said metrics, but out of my mouth came meretriz, which means prostitute. Or like the madam of the brothel. And I'm like, so you guys are headed to see meretriz. Ah, that's awesome. It was, there was no recovery. They were so offended and so upset. I'm like, I'm with that American, I don't know, I'm so sorry. And it was over, it was gone, because I hadn't practiced it. Okay, don't have a meretriz moment, all right? Don't have it. Practice these now. Compensation, what is there to talk about with compensation?
You have to know in advance what your compensation is, and you have to be able to defend it, so to speak, with your value.
Okay, so this is going to create value conversations. You can create process conversations.
I think we're all gonna get really good at, very quickly addressing the fact that our compensation is always negotiable and this is what I charge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be almost like a two sides of the coin where you're gonna say it's always negotiable so that we're covering our butts. But at the same time, this is what I charge to do my job. You don't walk into a lawyer's office and they sit down and say, hey, my fees are negotiable. That's not how you work with any other kind of professional, doctors, anybody. So because of the lawsuit, we are gonna need to acknowledge the fact that that has now become a thing. And this is what I charge to do my job. If you wanna work with me, and here's why I'm so fantastic, this is what we charge.
Okay, hear that?
And there are discount real estate agents out there.
Yes, and there always will be. And there always have been.
There always will be. They will continue to be around. You're not going to get away from them. So it's not like all of a sudden that's going to change in 90 days. And now I can't, nobody's going to want to work with me and I got to discount my services because otherwise they're going to go find a discount. Okay, the best response when they're asking like, wait, cut down your fees or do you do a flat fee or something is just have ready an example of how you do that in your menu of services.
I also think it's important.
Hold on.
Oh.
And then you give them that paper and say, I didn't realize you wanted a discount agent. This is what I do for a discount. Say that to them and watch them be like, well, no, I don't really want a discount. And then all of a sudden it's like, that's now gone. Right? But I'm willing to do discount for you. If you want to be discount, that's what I'm gonna do for it. It just says I will endorse.
I also think that when we sit down with the listing presentation, that we need to understand the value that we share with them about why they would want to pay that.
Oh, completely.
Because it's not just us looking out for us. To me, it's looking out for, I'm looking out from my seller when I'm explaining to them why they want to pay and make sure that that other person, the buyer, has a vision that is making sure that we're going to get to the close and the value of that.
Yes.
That I feel like is equally important because if it's not, one, their house might sit on the market.
Correct.
Two, it might fall through. Two, they might ask for the world, like all of these things and explaining what that buyer's agent was doing and why. To me, that's part of all of it.
Oh, entirely. That's why for the compensation, it's both discussion for buyer and seller. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
This is what I think of my business applies both from listing as well as to a buy. And we have to start having the conversations because right now that conversation looks different than what it'll look like in 90 days when they really don't have to pay. And you're now going to say, this is why you should pay.
I just wanted to touch on, that's great about that great Kilroy shared.
Great.
When somebody's talking to you about your rate, you need to make sure they understand that if you want them to be able to negotiate, you to negotiate for them and be a strong negotiator for them. And then you're not gonna let them talk you down right there in that meeting. Otherwise, you might as well be willing to talk about the job.
Right. In that sense, who's the stronger negotiator? They're hiring you to do what? And then we just let them out negotiate you.
So, real quick, I wanna
Negotiate. Yeah.
Thank you, Harmony, for showing up for the scripting, and I want to re-emphasize, every single person in this room should show up Tuesdays and Thursdays on Zoom to hear from Greg Roy and Edgar Ratzon, who are leading that charge for the entire franchise, and it's on Zoom, so there's no reason we can't be there. Tonight, and our guest therapist, so every week we have group therapy, which is where we share our needs and we get therapy where we need to. Buyer group therapy this month is going to be Octave Musharbish sharing how he is getting full compensation even when the discounts are already going into that. He had this happen with a buyer that was moving from Washington, but the builder that didn't want to pay full price, and he got 30% anyway. So he's going to share that story, how he's doing it, what that conversation looks like. So don't miss buyer group therapy next week, Thursday.
Brett just did that.
Thanks.
Jason.
Wait,
So Charles and I were just in a meeting not too long ago where we were talking about what some of the top teams and agents in Keller Williams are doing.
They weren't just that.
it's like a little thing.
They were invited to Austin to Gary Keller's top 200 mastermind. And that's where they were. So that's where this came from, Gary's top 200.
Thank you, I wasn't trying to brag. Low key that one, buddy. But anyway, they were saying that these top teams, the ones that are offering options. So here's my this package, here's my this package, here's my this package. And we've been doing that on our teams, on our listing side for forever, right? Here are all the options, choose your own adventure. But I've never done it on the buyer side. So I'm really excited to like mastermind with you guys and think about like, how do we offer options now to our buyers? You know, like anything, you give your kid a couple of different choices and you're comfortable with whatever choice they pick, right? And that way, those teams are saying that they make more money, and the statistics are showing that the teams that offer options are the ones that are making the most money in real estate because they're able to close the deal. It's not a black or white, yes or no, it's a, you pick.
How much time do you think they practice?
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
And they practice with their teams and they teach them and they, you know, and they role play it and everything.
So they are understanding that this change is less about here and more about here. If you come to my Consumer of Now class, it's entirely what we talk about. Is the psychology of the consumer, why they behave the way they do, why you have to change the way you're doing, why you need an array of services, menu of services, a la carte, they're all the same thing, whatever you want to call them. But you have to give them options and then package them into combo meals. But only give them 3.
And only give them the one.
Psychological reason for only giving them 3 packages, okay? You have to come to the class to find out the rest, but 3.
Make the middle one the one you want them to pick.
Yes.
And a cute little graphic.
Those are not part of the class. Hey, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say that you know, yeah, but they have to be the ones that you're comfortable offering. Like, don't offer something that you're not willing to actually be fully behind, because then you're really not bringing the value, and they're gonna see it.
Yeah, as a point on that, we're raising our flat fee because when we created ours, it was long before the extreme appreciation the last couple of years. So we've got to adjust up to what we're willing to do on the flat fee.
Entirely. There's, yeah.
A little bit about, I know on the selling side, what your menu's putting through, pictures, no pictures, a lot of other things. But on the buy side, what are the kinds of things you would limit? Clearly, open the door, maybe referring you to vendors. What kinds of things would you have in your buyer option?
Number of showings.
Okay.
I definitely have a number of showings. I might even have like a retainer fee. So first, we're gonna go out, we're gonna look at houses. My process is that anytime we go out, we're gonna look at no fewer than 3, no more than 5. Because if we look at more than 5, you're going to start confuddling on it, so we're just not gonna do that. So we can look between 3 and 5 the first time we go out, and the reason we're meeting right now in our buyer council is because I want to identify the properties, and as you ask to go see properties, expect that I'm gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions as to why that property. I'm not just gonna go and open it, that's not what you want to do. I mean, do you want to just look at houses, or do you want to buy a house? Buy a house. You're hiring me to find you the right house. So if I'm just going to open doors, then maybe that's my other advantage. I'll open doors, and this is what it is, open as many doors as you want.
Katie and I also talked.
but I'm not gonna negotiate for you. You tell me what you want, I'll send it in. Is that violating your fiduciary? Good question.
No, they accept it.
Technically not, because you have a duty of abeyance and they said, this is what I wanna offer. Okay, there you go.
So then you have to have that offer on piece of paper, this is what we agreed upon, and then go sign it. So that way you have something to fall on, oh, this is what we agreed upon.
Yeah, you'd have that in your sign up. I'm gonna just fill out the form for you.
The part of that would be when comps for you, hopefully understand the value of other houses so that you make a stronger offer versus take your number and send it in.
Yeah.
Whatever you think is one thing, but I'll get you an educated.
Be there for home inspection, help negotiate inspections, help negotiate, appraisals that may come in low, all those could be part of the full service.
Giving them access to off-market properties. So
Right.
I have the ability to show you properties that aren't even on the MLS yet. But for that one, that's in this package. Yeah.
Katie and I also brainstormed potentially monetizing time, hard time. So on the lower package, you gotta make an appointment, like go to my calendar and set up.
Mhm.
But if you're in the middle of top tier, you can call me and I'll pick up. And
Perfect,
Even
access and availability.
our time is valuable and even a showing radius, like, so you gotta pick a top, a higher tier if you want me to drive to San Diego.
Yeah.
Or if it's a distressed property, you're gonna pick my top tier, or a luxury property.
Yep.
Cause
So if you're at one tier, maybe I'm gonna go to the houses between 85. There's other tier,
right,
So
my hours are gonna.
can you see how you can start breaking that down when you start thinking different about your business? Here's the other part I want you guys now to practice. Okay, I talked about this after the town hall and in the class about getting paid. For the next 90 days, the MLS is your safety net. Why is it your safety net? Well, if we look right here on the paper at the bottom of sales, the sold section. Bring it up here on Zoom for those in Zoom land. Looking down here, concessions. Okay, the reason I'm pointing out concessions is because what's coming in terms of how the buyer's going to get paid. What's coming? If the seller is going to offer anything, it's going to look like a concession. Right now, 43% of all transactions across the MLS have concessions with a median amount of over $9,000. Okay, so over $9,000 are consistently being provided on concessions. The high this last month, anyone take a stab at what the high was on concessions? 250. Good, you all read it. 250,000 in concessions. Well, we're buying a house. I don't know. Just data. I didn't look at every one of them. K-Dub.
Oh, no, there's one.
Okay, so 250,000 was the most. So when we think like, oh, nobody's offering concessions or it's gonna be, it's a part of the game. Look in the East Valley City. East Valley City is denoted by the East Valley box down below. All right, Pawtucket, Chandler, Channel Heights, Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe, Santana, and Queen Creek. 35 to 48% of all those closings had concessions. We look at Scottsdale. Scottsdale still had 25% of them with concessions. Paradise Valley had 13% of concessions, and if you go to the west side cities, they're like, "Hey, I'll give you all of them. I'll give you a house." Just take it. I gotta get out of here. Right? Look at that. 84% in some cases. 84% in some cases. Okay. Why I point that out is because that's how the compensation is going to start coming through as in the available sessions. Right now on the MLS, I've been tracking with this since this came out, what's happening to the concessions, the buyer compensation, the actual commission that's being available to you. Right now, there are 189 homes active, not under contract, but that are active with zero offer. They're offering 0%. The the number of properties offering 2.5, which has been the biggest section, has increased. It's gone from about 56 to 60% of all homes are offering 2.5%. Where things are declining is in the 3%. And you see it growing in the 2.5 and in the less than 2%. So people who are at 2.5 have shifted down to like 2. Those who are at 2 have shifted down to like 1.5. They're all getting ready. Okay. So the point in that is that commissions are already affecting you. But the MLS is going to be your safety net. Well,
So the other day, on the search I had set up for a client, and there was 0 commission. And in the private remarks, they talked about the seller concessions to pay or whatever, they had it worded. And I actually took it into Jeff and I showed it to him because it's the first time seeing it. And then he read the wording and he said that's a violation. So the question is when are we gonna find out what that wording can be and can't be? And
you're going to have to step 2 because what Jeff meant, if he said that is a violation, is that will be a violation. That agent right now is actually doing exactly what I would tell you to go practice. But put the language in there, how you're going to work, how it needs to be. So I actually view that as like, that's a good thing that they're trying it. But the real point you're making is when are we going to have that language? I'm going to tell you, we're not going to get it for probably another month or so. They issued 2, right? They issued 2 types of buyer brokers and I've already rescinded one in their reaction to this. AAR has issued 2 as potentials and rescinded one of them already. Okay, so they're like, maybe we got to this side, maybe we should. I would just say, hold.
I would just say data integrity is our friend, remember that, like if you have anything you wanna try in the comments box, just send it to them and they'll be like, all day long, or, oh, rework.
That's a great idea. Did you pick that up on a post-it note when you were dragging your knuckles so much? That was
Jeff keeps
That was
pointing me to him, cause I'm the gray zone guy.
that's a good one. All right, the reason I say your MLS is your safety net is because you have right now compensation there. Okay, and 60% of the time that compensation is going to be 2.5%. So to force these conversations, you need to start putting 4% on your buyer brokers. 5. Okay, but 5%. Yeah, you're gonna put something that you know little to nobody is offering. Put it on there. Say this is what I charge. Because we're still using the current buyer broker, which happens to say this or this, whichever is greater. Okay, well, this one's always gonna be higher. Fine. Leave it in there. Let them give you their objections and conditions. You working through those conversations will help you identify, oh, that was just a condition. Oh, that was an objection. Interesting thing about questions that we asked. Harvard did this study, and they had copy machines, right? They had the copy machine. They would wait for someone to come and make the copies, and then the person would come over to them and ask if they could go ahead of them. Simple enough experiment. What they found is that how often do you think when they come up and say, hey, can I go in front of you? Very rare. Almost never. Yeah. Almost never did the person say, yeah, go ahead. When it was just, hey, can I go in front of you? No, you can wait. However, the rate of response and compliance jumped 85% as soon as the person requesting to go first added because. Because. It did not matter what they said after because. It did not matter the reason. It was just a condition. The person's like, you want to go first? Yeah, why? Because my lizard's perm is drying out. Oh, yeah. Let's go first. Just giving them a reason was enough. 85% of the time they comply. That's because it's a condition. When they say, can I go in front of you? And they're like, wow, Why is there not objections? Why in the world would I let you go first? It's a condition. Explain more to me. That's what you have an opportunity here when you put in the 4%. Why should I pay you 4%? Oh, now you're having conversations about your value, about your process, about how your listing console or buyer console is going to work, right? Now you're being forced to have those practice conversations in a safe place because you can always go like this on the contract, right? And strike out the whichever. Now it means you're going to get whatever talk about the MLS, right? So you have this period to practice and find out what those conversations are going to look like with little to no likelihood of losing the deal. But you have every opportunity to sharpen your axe for when 90 days that becomes a necessity, you're taking market share. Because there will be agents, make no mistake about it. There's going to be agents who are going to get to the closing table, they're going to look at that settlement statement, then there's going to be nothing there. They're going to be like, oh, guarantee it's going to happen. Don't let that be you. Right? Don't let that be you. Start with the practicing right now. We've talked about and put this in it, and how are we going to get paid? How are we going to make that happen? Because I'll tell you, when I used to work with buyers, if I'm one of those, I always got 4% in the last couple of years that I did. I got 4% plus about $1,000 transaction. Everything was just a condition. They just wanted to understand why. But I would get it. So I always got paid more than the listing agent. Every time I represent a buyer, I got paid more than the listing agent. I like that. You better suck less. This is because of concessions. Okay? Concessions were the way to get it. So in the contract, the contract already reads, we don't need additional language, used to need additional language, but now the contract reads it's for any buyer fee. What's your fee? Your fee is a buyer fee. So let's say now that they're offering 2.5%. Okay, 2.5% is offered on the MLS. You're working concessions, you got 3% concessions, it's a $15,000, it's a $500,000 house, it's between the median and the average. And so your 3% concessions that you got equals 15K, right? Well, total closing costs that that client really needs for escrow and title, maybe some of their origination both these, is gonna total what? $15,000? Oh, maybe if they do this or that, no, that's not, well, that wasn't the question. In order for them to get it done, locked in, how much is that going to run? It's probably going to run 9 to 10. Okay, call it 9 to 10,000. Maybe 11 or 12. Okay, so sure, we'll call it. Why not? We'll call it was actually $12,000 that they actually needed on the settlement statement. Where does that other 3 go? You negotiated additional 3. So where's that go? Where does that normally go? Goes back to the seller. Wrong. Where does it normally go? For the contract, you think it should go back to the seller, and that's where it would go. But that's only if there's any left over to go back to the seller. Have you ever seen any left over to go back to the seller? Yeah, I've never seen it. Because what happens? The lender, with their settlement statement and working up everything, goes, "Oh, there's $3,000 left here. My fee just went up. My origination fee just went up 3,000 more." They do it all the time. Okay. Is there anything wrong with them doing that? No, there's nothing wrong with them doing it. My question is, why aren't you doing it? You negotiated it. Why are you letting the lender get it? Because you don't have a mechanism to get it. This creates that. So now we have a gap of 1.5%. Well, make sure the lender knows. So either if it's your first time working with the lender, you gotta let them know up front so they don't try to mess with it. Or if it's a lender you work with regularly, they better understand it. I had a lender not listen and do it. You ain't my lender no more. Okay? And I got it. Boy, I sound like a real jerk today.
You're unfiltered and I usually hear that one. So
I'm sorry.
Well.
I apologize. I'm like, I really sound like a jerk today. I'm not.
You sound passionate. Let's put it in a positive way. You're passionate. And I'm
Very
passionate.
Passionate.
I think the filter is a very.
This is why I have 2 monsters, because at least the filter kicks in a little quicker.
Or not.
Or not. Or not, okay? But I'm like, I did that. I made it possible. So why am I not the one getting paid for it? Because my buyer can't use it. There's nothing left for the buyer to have. So my buyer, who I represented, got every ounce of my fiduciary for them. Now there's $3,000 left. I'll make sure that that lender isn't going to touch it. Because I'm due to get 4%. Whichever being struck doesn't, you can't have the greater. Right? Right. Having whichever struck doesn't eliminate 4. So now I take my buyer broker, submit it to title, say, here's my invoice for my pay. Because otherwise they just know what the MLS says. 2.5. I'm gonna give them my invoice from the buyer broker that says 4. And I say, I get that there's not 4 there, so I'll just take 3,000 additional. And I get paid 3,000 more, which is another 1%. So now, where they were offering 3.5, 2.5, I got 3.5. Because I have a safety net right now. See how that works?
Would you not be, not required, but would you not, in a perfect world, be expected to use that 3,000 to buy maybe a second home warranty, prepay some HOA fees, some of those types of things? Because I've done that in the past to use it, because I didn't, swooping it back to me. But if there's an opportunity to prepay some of those things.
So phrase the first part of the question. Is it an obligation? Can I, should you?
Should I, since that was negotiated with what the buyers wanted, should I not say, why don't we prepay HOA fees to your benefit, prepay another year of home warranty to your benefit, that type of thing?
Because my compensation says you still owe me.
Okay.
And I'm worth it. So the case by case, I'll recognize it's case by case. You can have a buyer that's like, oh, I really want to help them out. So yes, that's what you're going to do. You can come in and help them do that. But I'm going to tell you, if this buyer, my job is to get the buyer in the house at the price they want, at the time they wanted, with the budget they had. And I've done that. So I did a good job. I have no issue taking this. Maybe I'm a bad person. No. Maybe I'm a bad person. But
That's a negotiated fee, I mean.
You negotiated that first.
You negotiated
Correct.
that before
Which
you
is why-
even made the offer on the house.
which is why I'm not as quick to run and be like, I'm going to now give up my money to buy that for Right.
It's different in
Which is why.
today's world, because in the new world.
you. It completely,
And before we were getting paid guaranteed,
yes,
and now there is not.
completely. I completely agree with that, yes, yes. And I had times where, before I started doing this, yeah, I paid it and was like, how else can we do this? Can't have this going back, so let's pay down the rate, let's do this or whatever, right? So it will be situational for 90 days. 90 days. After 90 days, this flexible part that I'm talking about won't exist. Okay? That flexible part won't exist. You've got 90 days to practice this. Because in 90 days, the requirement on this buyer broker, when you do that, is you have to have a definitive amount or a definitive percentage on what you're getting paid. You can have no offsets in the agreement. Or it's like whichever. Or reduced by. You can't.
That means a conversation with the lender, so when they see that, they're not, first of all, they're not gonna know what your compensation is, although they should be asking now. And they may be saying to the buyers, hey, there's an extra $3,000 here, let's try to buy down your rate. I can see the lender trying to talk to the buyer and doing something along those lines.
Yep.
And if you put 2.5 and there is a 3% offer, then you just get there and get 2.5.
You're gonna get 2.5, which is
You have
great.
a conversation with the lender so that they're not trying to be helpful.
But my buyer broker has to say 3%,
Right.
because if it's.
What you saw the house and you did the 5%.
Yeah.
You sell a house and it says 5%, and you're at 3%. It's just
So
that.
the reason I was raising the hand is there are agents saying, well, why don't I just renegotiate my PA?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, from what I see out of the settlement language, they're saying you can't do that. But all these agents are saying it's a new agreement, yes, I can, so I'm curious what your take is on that.
I believe we are going to end up with some instruction, and it may come down to boards as to what they say, or state associations as to what they say about it. I see that that is a new negotiation. I completely agree that you have that. It's like, look, they're offering 5%. We're in contract to do this. Hey, would you mind signing an addendum or signing a new buyer broker with me that says I can get the 5% and we will limit it only to this house?
That's what I,
Yep, that's what I would, it's absolutely what I would tell you.
because many have identified it by address.
Yes.
You could renegotiate everything else, so it doesn't make sense, you couldn't renegotiate that, and you can do addendums to your selling. You can change list price, you can do all other stuff, doesn't make sense that one little piece would be frozen in time.
I agree.
So
It's gonna be hard for the association to enforce that.
Yes.
Now that everything's like official, which we already knew that was gonna happen, have there been any discussions about what's gonna happen for a veteran in a VA?
The veteran VA loans are stuff that's gonna come from policy within the VA, not anything with this. So they have to change their policy and their guidelines.
It's like, okay.
A letter didn't go from NAR to VA.
I believe they probably will. I believe
Is
they
it
will. That's not right
pretty
before it
much
goes in,
like-
it'll be pretty close.
Yeah.
They're gonna be on it.
Well, you can't, you just, you might have a different house if you don't have any.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be on it.
So,
Stay tuned with your lenders too. There's certain lenders that are saying they'll be willing to exclude additional concessions.
Yeah.
So talk to various lenders and see who's willing to bend rules. Yeah. Or it's not even bending rules, it's apply rules that don't even exist.
Yeah, they can have their own internal guidelines, and when they assess it, they can say. Ashley?
So I wanted to make sure you guys knew we have Scott Drucker coming to this office on July 17th. Talk about some of our settlement stuff. We are right now working out a town hall because our broker is working on that sort of changes that are now, they've spent like a whole day locked in a room talking about changes to contracts and preparation. That town hall is coming, so station most likely next Friday. But we'll be getting information out, so we are working on that as we speak, literally. Up and back here to make sure you guys get those updates, because we do not want you to miss a moment of being prepared. And that's why, again, thank you all for being here too today, because that's how we get plugged in and connected to what's happening. So appreciate every one of you that's in the room today too.
I do want to clarify, there's lenders that will say, I can't do that, because the rules don't say I can do it. And then there's lenders that say, the rules don't say I can't do it. That's my flip side. I like those second types.
You know.
Okay, let's dive into some numbers here, what y'all actually came for. Now that I've held you hostage. All right, into our factoids, and I promise this stuff is actually going to play a part that we do. This is our world. This is why I want to make sure we talk about it. This is the world we now live in. Okay, start forcing the conversations. Really call for your database and ask for people to go to lunch and to basically give them a buyer consult. Have the conversation. Please have the conversations. Okay, no meta-thesis. All right, market factoids. Here we go. Supply is decreasing. Still, supply is over the last 30 days. So based on how many homes are selling and how many homes are active over the last 30 days, 2.5 months are left if nothing else comes on the market. That's a seller's market. Okay, not until we're at 3 months do we really hit buyer's market. So overall, we are in a seller's market still. Okay, inventory is up to 90 days. How in the world does supply go down and inventory go up? We've been seeing this the last couple months. Why is that happening? Inventory is over the last 12 months. So the inventory looks at 12 months, excuse me. And each month we meet, it's dropped off a month. And then we meet and it's dropped off a month. Okay, so if it's going up, it just means relative to before, there's more product, which is exactly what we're seeing. Okay, the supply is different because it's measuring exactly how much there is right now based on what just sold. Okay, not just it's a year's worth of sales and a year's worth of inventory. Gotcha. Got me. All right, actives down to 86, closed down to 65. So here's something in terms of like setting up your value, I would highly recommend you do. Everyone out there is gonna be talking about the numbers and saying, homes are selling in about 65 days, maybe 3 months, right? Because there's inventory of 90 days, but it's inactives are about 3 months, but they're gonna be somewhere in there like that, right? So you do an analysis for the listing agent. As a listing agent for a consult, you're looking at the statistical analysis. The statistical analysis says that average days on market says 65. Well, we know that that's time to close. How do you now sharpen your value with that data?
Find out your average days.
Huh?
Find out your closed days on market.
Okay, you look at what your average days on market, and if you're using pending instead of UCB, that will actually tell you your number. This number here for closed includes CCBS, UCBs, oops, the agent forgot to flip it, right? It includes those. So it's not truly an accurate number. So if what's really happening, if we look at the time for contract, it's about 30 days, 28 to 30 days of contract. When I go into that listing, I'm going to say, look, homes are sitting for about, on average, 90 days on the market, 65 days to close. I want you to know I get my homes under contract in about 30 days. Does that not sound better? And what I just told him is I do what everyone does. That's the truth. But it don't sound like that. That's called marketing, folks. Okay, and that's what you need to do. You look at it and you say, okay, I can make numbers tell me any story. It normally takes me 28 days to get a property under contract because I have my own days on market, right? Because I always go pending. Recognize that UCBs under contracts, accepting backups, and your CCBS, which are contingencies, days on market continue to count. Okay, so you might go under contract in 30 days, but your close time frame is going to say 65. So if you know that you're able to put your homes typically under contract in less than that time frame, then that's what you tell them. I get my homes under contract, but it's sold. Get a home under contract in about 30 days. Typically, we're at about 30 days. Right now, homes are sitting 90 to 65. What would you like to do? Okay, that's how you use the market to your advantage. Is that weird? Am I losing anybody? Get some of y'all are looking at me like I'm nuts. Like I'm not coming back to this. Jason's gone off his rocker this week. It's this month. Okay. Active square foot down, which is great because we were at an all-time high last month of 380. All right, the average sold price per square foot is a new record. All the ones with an asterisk are a new all-time high record. 30-day sold square footage at 308, new record. 30-day average sold price of 618, new record. Median of 452, not a new record. But still pretty high, 452. And 1 year average sold 575, new record. 1 year median 440. What does that tell you when you look at it? What jumps out at you? What do you start thinking?
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay, people are willing to pay more money because there's less inventory. But wait a minute. We just said that if we look over here, if we look over here, yeah, that's stuff that what happened. Yeah. Okay. So if we look over here, May got up to 18,323. That was up 4% month over month, up 44% year over year, up 146% from 2022. But there's low inventory. Sounds counterintuitive. The answer is yes. Okay, the answer is really yes. Normally, this number should say 26,000 or more. That's where that should be. Okay, 26,000. So yes, we do have low inventory. Now we just happen to have low demand going with it. Before, when everyone was like, we got a supply issue, we don't have enough houses, we have a big supply issue. No, it wasn't. We had a demand crisis. There was way too much demand. There was no way we were ever going to have enough properties for the amount of demand. It was a demand problem. I don't care how anyone else wants to dice it, Tina. It was a demand crisis. Okay? We don't have that now. Okay, things are in equilibrium. We talked about this last 2 months, about things are in equilibrium. We've actually been seeing the median hold. This month it moved for the first time in about 3 months. The median average, the median sold and the median for 3 and 1 year both moved. And they haven't been moving 3 years. Excuse me, 3 months. It's gotta go faster now.
Jason, something else we covered was the general feeling among the blacklist is that life is good.
It is.
The news functions on clickbait and they say how horrible the economy and inflation's been. But the truth is where we're at right now, the stock market's doing all right. Homes are appreciating, people are getting raises, the job unemployment is bottoming. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
No, all things considered, things have calmed down.
And prices.
So that's just it. Things have calmed down, and that's why we feel things more like, okay, it's all right. Our relative to this is good is different from what was good. So that's some of why we can feel like, oh, it's not as good as it was, but it's not crazy. Things are settling down. Groceries are up 35% for inflation and stuff, but we are adjusting and we are calming down. Matt?
Well, on that note too, we're in May already, so the next 3 months is gonna be the biggest stories to watch because all the major corporations between June and August is their annual release of all their numbers. And it's gonna be really fascinating when all those big corporations who over the last couple of years have been saying they're losing. Most of them are all predicted to report high profit earnings. Some of the highest profit earnings in like the last 10 years.
Yeah. So the profit earnings they'll contrast that against revenue. Because it won't be record revenue, but it'll be record profit. And so that's how, be watching for that. Be watching for that. All right. So what does this mean for us? What this means is that the median, 50% of all homes sell above that, 50% of all homes sell below that. That's why the median, I prefer the median in our current market as a real baseline to where things are at. At 440 over the year, and 432 just over the last 30 days. What is the FHA lending limit? Good job, Katie. Katie knows where to find it. I saw her put her glasses on.
530, 150.
Right there. 530, 150, which means purchase price of about 550 with the 3.5% down. Homes are selling for $100,000 less than the FHA limit. 50% of them are selling for more than 50% of them are selling for below the FHA limit. Okay. Also, remember how I'm gonna wipe this down, everybody. Very good. I'm gonna wipe this off.
Take this one first.
Can we send it in the group text along with that, the post that we have for you?
Yeah.
And then you better set that.
Yes.
Sucks to decide.
How many of you beautiful that
Yeah.
market? Oh, yeah, it's a quote.
Make Jason t-shirts.
There we go. Yeah, that's awesome. I can put that on a shirt.
There's Jason.
Jason was. Yes.
That's why I come to me.
What's the one that's not allowed to do?
We always teach first. I sent it to you. You'll get.
Okay, I'll get to see it.
Then you can think Harmony later, she has copyright. So can you share them?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at how things have appreciated, this has been our market. I would say we're kind of like that. Okay, is what we've done. Here we have this was about 8. This is about 11. Right about here is 14. Okay, here is 22, and here's today. Why does this matter? Because look at our appreciation. We have no negative appreciation. We've been climbing out of what was negative appreciation. We're all positive appreciation now. In fact, over the last 30 days, price per square foot went up almost 10%, making over the last year of almost 3.5%. The median was 6.5%, and the median over the last year, everything is appreciated. 1%. What that means, healthy appreciation is 4 to 6%. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, my 3 daughters in here, hold on. 3 daughters. No.
Okay, so 4 to 6% appreciation is what we want to see. When we look at where we're at in terms of the numbers, we're actually doing pretty good. Hit 10% isn't bad. 10, 15% over a long period of time, that's a little bit concerning. But if we draw a line out here like this, I didn't quite get that to scale. That number should be a little bit above it. So I'll balance it on. There we go. That's where we're at, folks. We are in affordability. This gap right here above the trend line, we're about 12% high on the trend line. So we should be technically right now 12% lower to be right at the trend line. But do you know how hard it is to adjust 10, 12%? Not very long. You can do that in a couple months and it can adjust. All right. What that means is when you look at this, we had a high in 22, and that's where the previous highs were. Previous highs were in 2022. Now we're hitting highs in 2024. What does that mean for our buyers? If they're still waiting for the crash, they missed it. It was right here. There it is. Crash.
Yeah, that week we were gone.
And all our buyers out there waiting for the crash. You missed. Okay, we're back to appreciating. And that's just how it's going to be. Okay, we're not, this here is not happening. Okay, and then through this time we were on sale because we were below where we should be. Phoenix, all of Arizona, we were on sale. Now, sale's over. You got to pay sticker rate.
Blue lights.
Okay, you might find a blue light special here and there, sure.
It's in the West Valley.
They're in the West Valley, but they're giving you the concessions equal to
That's where
the
the
cost.
blue light is. Jay, we've been printing new slides.
Oh.
I said nationally, remember it was 12
Yeah.
2 years ago?
Yep.
It's
Nationally.
down to 9. So we are flat enough that we're meeting trend line.
It's coming together. And in Arizona, we've been higher than the national. So the fact that it is, things are settling in just like that, means we're returning to the trend line. That's all actually good news. It doesn't feel like good news when we look at the fact that, you know, we have, let's see here, 7,000 closings, and it's the second lowest April in 10 years. It doesn't feel awesome. But the reality is that we're getting back to some normalcy.
It's not good for us, but it's good for the market.
Right, it's good for the market, and I'm going to say it's good for you in here if you're out there making your boat go faster. That's how you win this.
You can still get your unfair share of what's selling out there. There is still opportunity. Each and every one of your goals in that 7,000. Hit the number you want to sell, and hit the number you want to achieve in your goals for your GCI for the year. You just have to do more.
You have to think different.
And think different. And think about your activities and what you're doing or just choosing to do with your time.
Yeah. So filter it through, is it making my boat go faster? We don't have a crash coming. We're good. All right. Let's look at some of our numbers. Single family homes rose 94 units. Flat. We're up 43% year over year and up to 168%. Recognize that these numbers, when we look at that, it's because it's a snapshot in time. And so our homes are now going to stay on the market longer because there's less demand. That's the only reason why active in a snapshot have more. What we want to look at is how many properties are coming on the market. When we look at how many are coming on the market just listed, April posted the most new listings in a single month since August of 22. That's good. That is good. That's a good amount of inventory coming, supply, excuse me, coming up, 8,880 new listings, but it's the third lowest April in the last 10 years. So you have to balance. We're higher than we were. It's the most that we've seen come on since August of 2 years ago, year and a half ago, but it's still low to what we've seen over the last 10 years. Okay. And that's why people feel like we got this big problem. This here, I can't not mention it because it's killing me. Really, it's killing me. It's absolutely killing me. You have a listing and there's a mortgage on it. What's the likelihood that that mortgage is assumable? Above and below 50% likelihood. Above 50% likelihood it's assumable. How can you find out?
Is it a good?
Yes. Is it FHA, VA, USDA? Those are all assumable. Conventional, a ton of them, near 50% plus of them, are assumable. Okay, so if you're listing a property, I would absolutely be putting in my new financing available that has an assumable loan. There's only 183 properties out there that say that. It's insane. Absolutely insane. And if you're representing a buyer, why aren't you asking if that loan on that home is assumable?
We haven't figured out how to turn it into value for somebody else.
So if you found a house that had an assumable 2.5% rate, which is what everyone was getting like for here, right? This was all 2.5 to 3%. Then we started getting 4, 5, 6, right? It's about in there. If you come across one and it is $200,000 loan at 3%, we'll say, do you think you would figure out how to get that for your client? I think you would. But the thing that stops us is exactly what you said. We stop ourselves because we're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Education will make your boat go faster. Lots and lots of lenders are now lending up to 10%, up to 90% of value. So 10% down, and you need to work some things with the grant programs, whatever, 10% down, and they will fund the difference between that assumable and the new loan amount. What does that do to your, if it's a $400,000 house, let's say, you have to put down, just do the math, $400,000 house, we'll even call it 440. There you go, happy? I am. All right, 45,000. Right, is what we're going to put down at 10%, right? Let me do the math so I don't have to. What is that? 366? I get that right?
396, but
Yeah, 396.
396? Thank you. 396 is what's left on it. Now I said, just hypothetically speaking, there was a $200,000 mortgage on it. There's 196,000 left. Well, that payment at 3% and that payment at 7%. See what that starts to do? All of a sudden, your client who was already qualified for that now can get this, and you've saved them an immense amount of cash flow. Do you think that they're going to tell everybody they ever see about what their realtor did for them? You bet they will, because that's social currency. You give them a reason to spread social currency, and they're going to tell people about it. They're going to be super excited. They'll never believe what I got. We were going to buy 440. Our payment was going to be whatever it was, 4,000, let's say. My agent was able to get it and found out that it was assumable, the underlying loan for it. I end up, instead of having a $4,000 a month payment, I'm paying $2,700 or whatever it is. I'm just making up numbers.
Did you buy it out?
Huh?
Did you buy it out?
Yes. Yes.
Makes them say.
Yes.
And to make the other side say yes, remember concessions go both ways.
Correct. Right. So you can
It's
offer
worth to the seller to let you keep that rate.
to work with you. Well, I'll pay your closing costs. Right. Flip the concessions the other way. It's exactly right. Does this cost the seller anything to do this? No, it doesn't. Okay. It doesn't. They just have to be willing to work with you. How do you know if they're willing to work with you? Only by having a conversation to know if it's an objection or a condition. Like you're talking. All right, under contracts, 8,879, nearly 9,000, which is nice to see. It's only up 15 units month over month. So again, flat. Okay. 14% year over year, 27 from 2022, relatively speaking. The numbers make May, though, the lowest May for contracts since 2014. And I only know 2014 because that's when I started keeping track of things. So it might be longer than that. All right. What that means is that when you look at 8,880 homes came on the market and one fewer home went under contract, that's equilibrium. We're a pretty balanced market, actually. Okay, we're a pretty balanced market. All right. Let's see, our closed sales, talked about that. Cash is king. For 27% of all of April's closings were cash sales. Okay, 27% of all closings were cash sales. 15% of those were below 250. So 85% of all the cash sales were above 250. That means they're not going to just like dilapidated trailers and stuff. These are legit properties that are being purchased cash. So when we see that, contrast that to this on the iBuyer report. Here you have 27% of all homes closing with cash, but we look at the iBuyer report and Open Door closed 70. OfferPad closed 11. 1% market share and not even registering a percent. Where's all the rest of the cash? The buyers.
Yeah.
It's the buyers and your local investors. Yes, there's some hedge funds and REITs, but plenty of those want to actually take it off market so it doesn't even show up on the MLS. Even more homes close cash than what we see out here because they never hit the MLS. Right? So when we take all of that into consideration, this number for total homes closing cash is almost 38%. 38% of all listings are closing for cash. Are you marketing for cash? What does that tell you the consumer wants? In terms of purchasing, they want no payments. In terms of selling, they want simplicity. They want it to be real easy. That's why they're willing to take the cash. Okay? So you have to find the cash. It's out there. 30%, 38% of all homes are closing with it. So tap into some of that. Okay? Oh, and check this out. Price changes. There were 9,500 price cuts last month. The median was $10,000.
Want to know how to get involved in having cash? Like the QR code on your offers or I'll see it. After the fact.
All right, look at our activity. We can see everything's up in terms of price of available units. Sales were up, supply went up. How do we go up in all of them? How does supply go up with actives and solds all going up? The available is outpacing what's selling. When we had 7,000 units close, of those 8,879 that we see under contract, 25% of them fall out. So when we come to look at what our numbers are next month, it'll be in the 7,000s again for closings when we look at May's closings. You can predict that based on the fallout rate. So those that fall out never sell and they go back active. All right. Which, if we have more actives, a higher increasing number of actives over our sales, it's going to cause the supply to increase. Interesting here, 4 months of luxury properties off. 701 homes sold for over $1 million. It's crazy. Okay, here in the East Valley, very similar story. Fewer in the low range, but everything else up. kind of back and forth, but it was nominal, the changes, you know. I only track if it's below 10, I'll put the number there, so the others 12, 15 were their changes. But our supplies, all, look at this, all where you purchase. Seller's market. Seller's market. Okay. Listing success, 78%, like I said, about 25 fall out. And then for our the luxury part of the valley, everything is up. But supply is down. So what does that tell you? It's contrary to the other. Because again, we have both everything up, and here they're almost all down. Why? There's more closings. The closings are up, are percentage wise, the ratio, there's more closings happening in there than there is with the rest of the properties. This one I found interesting. These stayed exactly the same. 3 came off and 3 came on. That's what that means. They 3 sold and 3 had to have come off. All right. Let's check out our KW. How we doing? We got 10 coming soon, 104 active. We listed 70 in April. Good job. Contracted 56. Those 111, angel numbers. Market share 1.6. We've closed 377, almost quarter of $1 billion closed just for our offices. All of KW has 940 listings, took 515 listings in April, contracted 559, closed 777. And market share is at 11%. It's the biggest franchise market share in the market. Okay. KW has the largest market share in our market.
Yeah, that's a big deal, you guys. That's underlined. And uniting as a force, we are a force as a company united. Sometimes not because we're called independently owned and operated, but there is a force in Keller Williams uniting that. So, other things too, are you gonna get to something about? No, this
this is just maybe applies to you, maybe doesn't apply to you. I was on a luxury listing. I actually did not get it, but part of the conversation we were having is they were concerned that Keller Williams was not a luxury brand in comparison to like Berkshire Hathaway or some of these other big names. And I had all my comps there with me, flipped all those pages over, and out of like, I think the 8 or 10 that I took, the vast majority were actually KW offices, not necessarily our office, but the vast majority. So I think that that's something to be really proud of, is that we do have a huge market share here, and it is a solid name. And maybe if you're working in that luxury market, we need to like work on that. We need to fix that, because for some reason it's not translating.
The story is getting lost. Nobody sells more luxury homes than KW, but it doesn't have that. That sets.
2 brands combined.
Yes, it's more than the top 2 brands combined. So when people are like, "Oh, I need to be at Sotheby's to sell luxury," you're gonna go sell less. I need to be right. That's what I'm just at the numbers say. I'm just reporting the numbers. That's all.
I think that was a really great share, like, to bring those statistics of what they do has done, kind of very difficult.
Well, and this agent actually, these clients actually had already met with like one of these other luxury brands, and that luxury brand was willing to do it for 1%.
Oh.
And I said, what are they offering? What are they expecting me to offer for cooperative compensation? Oh, well, we don't have to. And I flipped those papers over again and I said, let's have a look at what your competition is doing. And the lowest one that was on there was 2.25. I said, so if you do that, and I hate that we're losing this kind of like visibility that we can really pitch our value with. If you do that, whose house do you think is going to sell first?
I know that we are in the business of selling, not listing houses.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. Okay.
Yeah. We should make a new t-shirt for that.
Put that on.
Don't click better sister.
All right. Here we go. To the bottom. Ashley, what do we got going on here? Why don't you come up to the front so those on in Zoom land can hear you?
Like, I've been trying to, it's not.
While she comes up, I'll just point out here that 72 sold and just 990. Flat fee, just 990, that's what they offer, we'll sell your house for 990. Don't get caught into it, what it is that just putting out one of their menu of services in the forefront. It's all upsell from there. So, do you have an option? I wouldn't necessarily lead with it, but I would make sure that I have it in my folders, because if they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna go into the flat fee, whatever, whoever. Which we can see how well the flat fee companies are doing. Okay. Have that be a plot, say, this is what you get compared to this. Which option would you like to go with? Do better.
On that note, the NAR settlement and town hall, if you missed it, we just talked about the additional town hall that's coming up either Thursday or Friday next week. I've just got to tie him down. The brokers have both talked about which one they want to do. And then that will be next week. So we're again, Jeff has been in a room with MLS. We're talking about actually constructive information, which was interesting because he talked to Jason about this on Red Day, broker Jeff. And I'm like, well, I don't see anything on social media about more stuff coming out right now. I've been watching because I want to make sure we're in front of it for you all. And our agents out there, our community is not talking about it. And now is actually when we need to actually start talking about it, which is really ironic. So we want to get in front of it for everybody. So watch for the town hall next week. If you did not see the last one though, please go watch it before that. That will be helpful for you.
This next week, before.
Yeah, just like we'll edit it out like we did before if there's anything it can't be. And so then the other thing, scripting we talked about, group therapy we talked about. Don't miss that with buyer group therapy with Atif. And then I think we'll continue the conversation about menu of services because that's a topic that's needed. And then Ignite After Dark for anyone who has not sold any real estate or not hit their goals. This is top agents across the country doing Ignite After Dark. So we're doing an Ignite series. If you're not selling 18 homes or more, that's what Ignite is designed for, not just new agents. If you're not selling 18 homes or more, we're doing Ignite After Dark. Top agents, market center leaders are getting together. I just signed up for a class myself. We're all teaching classes starting Monday, and it's all from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time.
I know y'all have already binge watched One Piece and everything, so binge watch Ignite.
Yes. It will be helpful as we're leveling up. Call nights, we are having call nights in multiple locations. The next call night is this week on May 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. with a baseball theme in Scottsdale. So multiple teams there are getting the whole bullpen set up with baseball theme. Go join, have fun, see who gets hung up on first and sworn at first. It'll be fun. And then Meet the Mega Matt coaches, May 28th and 29th. Don't miss that. He's a phenomenal human and instructor and a really, really great business person. And he has been with our top group this past year. So
he has his own marketing.
He does. All right.
The 29th is here, 28th is in Scottsdale.
Yeah, same topic, same concepts, just different days to make sure we allow for everybody. So thanks, guys.
All right. Any thoughts, questions on everything? We all ready to go practice? We got 90 days.
Yeah.
You're not sure what to practice? Go to script practice, invite your best friend out to lunch, talk to them about the NAR settlement. You'll all have your talking points. All right. Thanks all. Yes, please. I'll make myself a note. Look at
And they'll be like, and then I want to say that. Like, I love him today. I would be able to like, the attorney. Yeah, you know, like, like not argument, but like, you know, okay, so.
That's been great. But you cannot
Put a house in there.
That's not gonna happen.
Typical, you know, this 311 versus 22.
Because as long as it's highly.
Tell me how I do.
In a yard, the little things, whatever that is, I can do that and then open people on that part, but it's highly easy for you. She can onboard you. Yeah. No problem. So my husband's right.
Good, I was feeling fine, but.
But yeah, no, I can't. Okay, yeah. Well, let's go sit in my office real quick.
I can't figure it out. I can't, I've been talking about it since December, November, whenever, and I can't figure it out.
We'll give them a ride.
Why are we pushing this? I don't understand it, but I know there's a huge opportunity.
I'm not gonna figure out a market.
Yeah, so if we're not ready, just sit next to me, you and I will be talking about it.